was a room saying Satan worshippers. This is the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. There's a whole hostel block with a huge big granite, I don't know, you can't call it a board, it's a big wall, granite wall with big letters, huge big letters this size written there, homosexuals and gays. In the middle of that environment of Jahannam, you want to put children and you think they are going to get a great education? Subhanallah. Create Islamic universities, create Islamic schools, create an Islamic environment in your home, spend money to create those things in your country. Otherwise, you will have to give hisab for all that stuff that you are accumulating. You create that, at least it will become a source of deliverance for you on the Day of Judgment. You accumulate it and die, you will have to give hisab for that. Create such environment, inshallah. Questions, comments? Ji.
You mentioned about creating Islamic environment at home. So let's say if the house is un-Islamic, should we start giving da'wah or clear off the un-Islamic stuff first?
May Allah bless you. In Hindi they say that somebody sat and listened to the Ramayana the whole night. And in the morning he said Rama and Sita were they brother and sister or husband and wife? May Allah bless you. What do you think I was talking about all this while? I was talking about what to do in an un-Islamic environment in the home. So give dawah, don't touch anything. Don't touch anything. What un-Islamic things will you have in a Muslim home? Do you have idols? Ask him seriously. You don't have idols, no? Khalas, then don't worry about anything else. You go and pray and recite Quran and do ta'aleem. Everything else will go by itself. Don't worry about it. You go and start moving things around, you will create a conflict. Don't do all that. Leave it. Let it be there. When the word of how do you make shaitan run away? What did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? Call adhan. He will run away. You bring the word of Allah into the house, the word of Ghairullah will leave. The word of shaitan will leave. You get what I am saying? Anything else? Jay. How to do what?
How to give da'wah to people who you see on a daily basis. How do you do da'wah for people you see occasionally? For example, family members that you see maybe once a month.
All right, very good. How to give, this is to how to give da'wah on a daily basis at home and so on, but how to give da'wah to family members and so on who you see on a monthly basis and whatnot. You know what you should do? Make it into a practice of yours. Any family gathering you go to, whether it's for Eid or it's for some marriage ceremony or some party or whatever, any family gathering you go to, make it a practice to, moment you go there and you sit there, start talking about the greatness of Allah. Link with whatever topic is happening there and bring it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If somebody says World Cup football, fantastic game playing, he says, subhanallah, see the greatness and glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made people who can run so fast and they can throw the ball in the goal. Now see the importance of what do you think about a team which does not know which side the goal is. Supposing they hit the goal in the wrong goal, what do you think will happen to them? Subhanallah, where is our goal? Are we thinking about our goal? You see how I brought World Cup in 3 sentences back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the akhirah? That's what you should do. No matter what subject they let them talk about anything in the world. Bring it around to the akhirah and the world. Now one of two things will happen. Either they'll stop inviting you, which is good, alhamdulillah, it gives you more spare time. Or what will actually happen, I'll tell you, this has actually happened with me. You know what will happen? People will look forward to you coming. People will gather people and say, please come and talk to them. Who will do this? The same people who used to criticize you. They'll gather people and they will come. They will gather people and maybe that won't happen to you, but certainly the men it will happen or can happen. They will gather people and they will say, please don't pray salah in your masjid. Please come and play salah here and lead us in Jama'ah. When everybody is gathered, they will say, before we go for lunch, please, or before we go for dinner, please speak for 5 or 10 minutes about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Same people who used to criticize you will start doing that. The hearts of people are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some will stop inviting you, it's okay. One elderly aunt of mine, and she is in her close to 90s and all that. And in her days, she was a very beautiful woman and so on, very fashionable and everything. Even today, I mean, if I look like that when I am 90, I'll be very happy. I mean, she's, mashallah. So, she was there. But dead against hijab and, beards and whatnot. So, we met once recently in a wedding. First thing she told me, she said, you are responsible for all these girls who are wearing hijab now and for all these boys who have got beards. So, I said, Alhamdulillah. So, I said, Alhamdulillah. I said, you know what? I said, Auntie, I'm going to make you my witness before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you must say all this on the day of judgment. You must say, this is the fellow who did all this. Then she said, what is hijab? She said, hijab is not fard on me. What is the hukum for hijab? I said, the hukum for hijab is, if you have gone past the age of childbearing and so on, then hijab is not fard. But I said, for you, hijab is 100% fard. Total 100% fard. She said, what do you mean? I said, you are so beautiful. There's no way you have to wear hijab and niqab. I mean, subhanAllah, this is crazy. You have to absolutely wear hijab and niqab. So I said this. Then that whole afternoon, every time she met my wife, she said, see how he said I'm beautiful? See how he said I'm beautiful? She doesn't criticize anymore. She's fine, happy. She's fine with me. Then she's telling me, all these fellows who have beards, they look ugly. The only one whose beard looks nice is yours. Alhamdulillah. The biggest mistake that we make when we talk about dawah is we think that dawah means being nasty, dawah means being rude, dawah means looking like you've gone to a funeral. I mean, who told you don't smile, don't laugh, don't joke? I mean, do it nicely, do it win the hearts of people. Slaughter your ego, say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and make one proper zabiha, both the windpipe and the gullet and both the veins. Make sure it's all cut nicely, blood is flowing. Then you go for dawah. Telling you seriously. If somebody says, I'm offended, somebody elder person say, I fall at your feet, go actually and dive. They'll never tell you they're offended after that. Seriously, where is your ego? You're talking about the greatness of Allah. If somebody says, shut up, no, I will not shut up, but I will, I'll kiss your feet, I'll put your slippers on my head, no problem, but I will speak about the greatness of Allah. Remember, even the people today that we are talking about, who we think this is one of the problems of coming to Islam. And do remember, Shaitan has a million ways of, deceiving people. And the biggest way that Shaitan has of deceiving people who newly understand Islam is by creating kibr in their hearts. They start believing, I am better than so and so. Because I am praying, I've got a beard, I've got a turban, I've got a hijab. And look at this fellow, he doesn't even have a beard and he doesn't even pray and he doesn't even do this, and their house is full of haram. What is that haram? The same haram which was in your house until last week. So we start feeling I am superior. What is the hadith? What did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say about the one in whose heart is kibr? And how much kibr is required for that? That much. He said he will not even smell the fragrance of Jannah. Shaitan deceives in many different ways, because Shaitan knows now he can't tell you, let's go to the pub or let's go to the disco. So what does he do? He says, Subhanallah, Baharul Ulum, my God, I mean, you must look at your knowledge. Ibn Taymiyyah was nothing in front of you, mashallah. Yeah. So you start believing this crap. This is from Shaitan, pure Shaitan, nothing else. The people who we think are irreligious, subhanallah, they are not the enemies of Allah. Let us understand this very clearly. They are not the enemies of Allah. Are they the enemies of Allah? Somebody who watches the television program is an enemy of Allah? Don't treat them like the enemies of Allah. They are not shaitan in human form. Shayateen min al-insi wal jinn. So these are the shayateen min al-ins. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Masha, alhamdulillah. I was saying to somebody the other day, Disraeli, he was one of the prime ministers of Britain. He was an atheist, but it is a famous quote by him. He saw some beggar or something going on the street and he said, there, but for the grace of God goes Disraeli. He didn't believe in God, but he used that term. He said, there but for the grace of God goes Disraeli. Seriously, we should say this every time we see something and we see somebody who's saying, there but for the grace of Allah goes Yawar Beg. It is the mercy of Allah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put a hijab that you don't see the uyub that I am filled with. If Allah showed you my uyub, what would happen to me? Believe me, I am not modest. I am not modest at all. You must have discovered that by now. I am not modest. I'm telling you the fact. And in that context, let me end. We have to end at some point. Let me end with this hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all that person. He said that a person will be called on the day of judgment before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, oh my slave, on such and such a day, did you do such and such and such and such? And the person will say, yes, Ya Rabbal Alameen, I did that. Then Allah will say, on this particular day, didn't you do this? He will say, yes, Ya Rabb, I did this. Then he will say, on this particular day, didn't you do this? And he will say, yes, my Rabb. And his entire, all the sins that he committed in the world will be listed one by one, and he will make ataraf and he will accept and he will say, Ya Rab, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. And then he will say, Ya Rab, but you know, when I was in the world, you hid me, you hid all these sins from the people. Nobody knew that I did all these things. People respected me, they loved me, they thought very highly of me. Nobody knew that you covered all this. But subhanAllah, Ya Rabbal Alameen, or today in front of all these people, I am humiliated, I am disgraced. Because all of these people are watching. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, turn around and look. And when he turns around, there is a hijab. There is a curtain. Allah will say, my slave, this is between you and me. I covered you there. Sattarul Huyub is my Rabb. I covered you there. I cover you now. Now I forgive you, go into Jannah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us that person who will be granted Jannah despite whatever we have done, who will be granted Jannah bila hisab, who will be granted Jannah when forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will not ask us, He will not take the hisab from us, He will grant us Jannah, Firdausul Ala, the company of Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And for us and for all our families and for all those we come into contact with and for all those we make dua for, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant that Jannah, and may Allah put it in your heart to make dua for me and my wife in this context. Jazakallahu khairan. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant nastaghfiruka Allahumma wa natubu ilaik.